Barclays Center and welcome you under blue skies and a bright sunshine on this, our 50th birthday of KDKA, and of course that means 50 years of fine broadcasting throughout the world. A fine afternoon, surprisingly no rain. I thought perhaps we were going to have to talk to you under a tent here this afternoon, but we are going to not light another candle as we've been doing all day, but this time bury a capsule. And to help us describe the ceremonies is our cohort over at KDKA Television, Channel 2's good friend, yours and mine, Bill Burns. Bill, and I think before we start the ceremonies officially this afternoon, we have our fine Kiski area high school band, some 155 good-looking young men and women who will start us off with a salute to Old Glory and the national anthem. Incidentally, Bill, that same band is going to play for us tonight at the Pittsburgh Steelers-Cincinnati Bengal game during the halftime. Should be quite a treat. I notice you've been mingling with our guests, and let's introduce some of them to you.
Well, we have a number of people here, and we were expecting Mayor Peter Flaherty, the mayor of our city of Pittsburgh, but for some reason, his honor is not here. But there are many others who are here. For instance, we have Mr. Donald H. McGannon, who is chairman of the board and the president of the Westinghouse Broadcasting Company. We have Mr. Edward Wallace, who is the Group W area vice president for this area. We have Mr. Marvin L. Shapiro, the executive vice president of the Westinghouse Broadcasting and the president of the Group W stations. Also with us is Mr. Bill Hartman, who is the general manager of KDKA Radio. And though I said his honor the mayor, Peter Flaherty, was not here, up he popped. Just like a Republican in Mount Lebanon, he comes in. I wonder if we could have the mayor over here, please. Well, there you go.
Incidentally, Bill, let me do a little introducing here. I'm sure you haven't met the first voice on KDKA. Wouldn't you like to meet Leo Rosenberg over here? Bill Burns.
Leo, it's a pleasure.
Way back in 1920, this was the man who gave the Harding-Cox election returns, right, Leo?
That's right, and all I can say is things are much different today. We had to get the news from the election news from the Pittsburgh Post and send it by wire out to KDK and then transcribe it. Now we have satellites that give us news from all over the world. I'll say that's some difference.
It sure is, Leo, because now, what time you read it in the Post, it's history. They've already had it on the radio and television the night before.
I thought you two would like to get acquainted. Here's a man over here, Bill, that many of our listeners met this morning through television and radio. And for those of us who haven't had the pleasure of meeting Harold Ireland, the world's first full-time radio announcer, here he is. Harold Ireland, ladies and gentlemen. Harold, fine.
Harold?
Come on right over here. That's fine. You know, it would be a strange thing if we were broadcasting from a tent today, as I thought we would be because of the rain. But it just struck me, here we are 50 years later, broadcasting from a tent, and that's where you broadcast from originally, wasn't it?
For the time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be invited here to participate in this 50th anniversary program. This open-air exercise does remind me that in the early days of KDKA, we did broadcast from a tent on the top of a 9-story manufacturing building at East Pittsburgh. And one day a storm blew the tent away. So we broadcast in the open air for a few days, and we had a soprano soloist come out and sing. And she came out dressed in an evening gown, and the building was right next to the main line of the Pennsylvania Railroad. And while she was singing, a Pennsylvania train came by, and the soot and the smoke came down all over her evening dress. And just, I think, the next night or two, the moths and bugs were flying around the electric lights, and we had a tenor soloist who went to hit a high note, and he sucked a moth in his mouth and choked. And fortunately today, we don't have any bugs flying around the lights here, and we don't have any Pennsylvania Railroad train going by. So there is quite a difference between what we had there for a few days in the summer of 1921 and what we have today. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks for giving us a little glimpse of the past, Harold. Harold Ireland, world's first radio announcer.
Ed, I'm very glad to have met Mr. Ireland, because up until then I always thought you were the first full-time radio announcer. Believe me.
I look upon you as a son, Bill. How long have you been in this business of radio and television?
Well, we have as honor the Mayor, Peter Flaherty, here, and we'd like to introduce the Mayor.
I see.
Your Honor, you take over, will you?
Well, somebody already said, Bill, it's a hard act to follow. But first of all, the honored guests, the members of the W2 organization and KDKA and friends, members of the band out here who've done such a fine job. I'm very happy to be here on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh to commemorate this very fine occasion. KDKA is, I think, not only the pioneer radio station, but they've done just an excellent job in all of the various endeavors that they've done here in the city of Pittsburgh, that it comes very easy for me to come down here this afternoon. And what I brought with me is a little bit large, perhaps, for the capsule, but many years from now, I think somebody might want to see what this city looked like before Pete Flaherty became mayor. And it's all right here in this book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete.
Go ahead, Ed.
Here's a man who is certainly interested not only in the past 50 years, but also the present and, of course, the future of this fine organization of ours, Mr. Donald McGannon, Chairman of the Board and President of Westinghouse Broadcasting. Mr. McGannon.
Thank you, Ed. I'm indeed privileged to be here with you this afternoon to commemorate this very historic event. I'm pleased to be here also on behalf of the Westinghouse organization and to commend all of the employees of KDKA and KDKA TV, not only at the present time, but over the past 5 decades. It's very hard to imagine what the men who stood on the roof of the plant in East Pittsburgh 50 years ago were thinking when they broadcast the Harding-Cox election and started a whole new medium of communications in this country and, for that matter, in the world. I'm reasonably confident they didn't anticipate the flight of Lindbergh 7 years later, or the explosion of air travel thereafter. I'm also reasonably sure they didn't envision the nuclear fission that's going on in the world heretofore and now, and also the whole space travel explosion that's developed. I'm also confident they didn't realize the tremendous change in social customs and manners and circumstances now going on at the present time. And I think this presents to us today an equal quandary and an equal challenge as to what the next 50 years is going to hold, not only for us as people and as a society, but also for media of communication such as KDKA and KDKA television, as to what their role is to be and what their responsibility is to be. I submit that we are more capable, more empowered, more enlightened based upon 50 years of experience today to anticipate the next 50 years than perhaps Leo Rosenberg or Harold Ireland were. And I submit that we must commit ourselves at this point to undertake this challenge and this obligation with a new commitment and a new and renewed vigor to fulfill the public interest even to a greater degree than in the past 50 years. Happy birthday to KDKA, and my thanks to you.
We are here today to lower not a boom, but a capsule, a time capsule. And in it we have quite a variety of objects. And right at this time, we are going to lower the capsule with Mayor Flaherty and Mr. Don McGannon. And you might be interested in some of the things that are contained in this particular vessel. The time capsule itself is a product of Pittsburgh plate glass, and appropriately enough, it's housed right in this building behind us. It is plastic and reinforced with glass and special resins. And in it, Bill, we take a look at the past, and we also have some present things which will soon become the past, and also some predictions of the future. You know, our mayor has proclaimed this day KDK's Golden Jubilee Day here in Pittsburgh, and we have a copy of the mayor's proclamation, the copy of the congressional record honoring KDK radio, as well as the resolution of the House of Representatives here of Pennsylvania. And 6 hours of tapes will go into this capsule, which will trace the history of radio from way back there in the pioneer days. Today's programs of our KDK's Golden Jubilee broadcasts will be there. Then we shall have microfilm copies of the Pittsburgh Press and the Post-Gazette, a check which depicts Pittsburgh skyline, and that check is a copy of one from the Pittsburgh National Bank. Predictions, of course, we'll be looking into the future, predictions that many of you listeners have sent in, what will be going on in the year 2000, and also predictions from the Nuclear Energy Systems Division of Westinghouse Electric. A copy of the history of KDKA radio, a typical KDK program scripts for the past 50 years, and magazines of the day. We're going to have the log of the station's operations, magic dials by Lowell Thomas. And incidentally, Lowell Thomas sounds fine. He was on the air with us on both radio and television this morning. Did you hear him, Bill?
I heard him, Ed.
Sounds just great. Blueprints of the 39 KDK transmitter, and many other bits of memory that will be revealed in the year 2000. Of course, here's a strange thing. In putting these various tapes and bits of microfilm in here, you must understand that in the year 2000, they might not have a machine to play them back. So we're also putting the right machine so they can reproduce them again in 2000. Bill?
Well, I think we should get on with lowering the capsule. With his honor the mayor, Mr. McGannon. And drop it gently. While the gentlemen are lowering the capsule, I'll tell you what's going to happen on November the 2nd in the year 2000. Ed Chauncey and I'll be here to tell you about it, we hope. At that time, the Pittsburgh National Bank will inform the manager of KDKA Radio that an envelope has been held in trust since today, 1970, and that the bank has received instructions to deliver it to the KDKA manager on that date. In the envelope will be the instructions on how to open the capsule, a map of its location, and a list of the contents of which Ed just read off to you. The capsule can be unearthed any time after the letter is received by the KDKA management, but it cannot be opened until November the 2nd, the year 2000. Now, Mr. Edward Wallace, the Group W Vice President for this area, will present this trust envelope to Mr. Ken Strader, the officer in charge at the Gateway Center office of Pittsburgh National Bank. Mr. Wallace.
Thank you very much, Bill. It's a real pleasure for me to present to you, Ken, this envelope, which contains a map directing the exact spot where the capsule was buried, also the terms and conditions upon which it might have to be moved at some date in the future in the event that the Equitable Life Assurance Company of America may do further construction in this area. And so, Ken, we sincerely appreciate Pittsburgh National Bank taking this into their possession and alerting the manager, whoever he may be, in the year 2000, that he is to open it with these instructions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wallace, and on behalf of Pittsburgh National Bank, I have this receipt for you, sir. We'll be in touch with you in the year 2000. Thank you. KDKA, AM and FM, Pittsburgh.
That's about it. Quite a bit of broadcast history made here today on the 50th anniversary of KDKA.
Incidentally, Bill, I slipped an old pair of spats in there. When they open that up, they'll be saying, where in the world did those things come from and what were they for?
You know, Ed, the 50th birthday came to KDKA, and as it does to everyone, someday it's going to come to you and to me.
In a long, distant future, that's right. Come the year 2000, I'll probably be still on that 7 o'clock news in the morning. Well, let's have a final salute on this program from that fine band over there of the Kiski Area High School.
This is the pioneer broadcasting station of the world, KDKA Pittsburgh. The entire history of broadcasting dates from this city, this station, and this day 50 years ago. Then, as now, Westinghouse Broadcasting. The pioneer broadcasting station of the world, KDKA Pittsburgh. The bold experiment of Westinghouse Electric, and today the keystone of Group W, Westinghouse Broadcasting. The entire history of broadcasting dates from this city, this station, this day, and this moment 50 years ago. When you hear the tone, KDKA and all of broadcasting will be exactly half a century old.